In this week's 2026 Watch, we are going to take things over to Palatine, Illinois, which, if many viewers of the show will know, I am from that area, and I have a very close relationship with the 51st District because, of course, it is the place I call home, and also because of its current incumbent, Nabila Syed, who has been a friend of the show for many years. If you haven't heard, she is now running for Illinois State Senate. And so that means that Illinois House District 51 has opened up for the first time in 4 years. And running to fill that seat, I'm so excited to be joined by the candidate, the Democratic nominee, presumptive Democratic nominee for that seat. She's here to talk about the headlines, her race for the House of Representatives, and a lot more. Joining me today to talk about all of that is Jenny Levin. Jenny, thank you so much for joining us here on the Ishaan Show today.
Thank you so much for having me on the show. And we're both longtime Palatine natives. Both
Oh
graduated
yeah,
from Friend along with
go
Nabila.
Bikes.
Go way back.
Yep, that's exactly. And it's great to have that type of community, to have that type of community relationship, really. And it's great to see another, dedicated member of our community running for this seat. And I'm so excited for our conversation today. But before we do get into that, why don't you take a couple of minutes to introduce yourself to my audience?
Absolutely. My name is Jenny Levin. Again, I am a longtime Palatine native. Born, raised, grew up here, went to Paddock School, Plum Grove Junior High, Fremd High School, lived here pretty much all my life. I am a nurse. That's how I will probably always describe myself. I got involved in emergency medicine over a decade ago. I've done everything from EMT and patient care tech as a CNA, which I got both licenses through Harper College. I got my nursing license through Loyola University of Chicago, and I've been practicing medicine over 10 years, mostly in emergency medicine, all the way up through critical care transport and working in the trauma base during COVID. I took a step back from patient care because I see how hard things continue to get, not only for my patients, but for my fellow nurses, for pretty much everyone across the spectrum of the healthcare industry, compounded with the other problems that you see in the emergency room with people having food insecurity and housing insecurity. And there's just so many opportunities to help make our community better that I decided the best way for me to contribute to that is to bring my real world experience to Springfield. So I'm very honored and excited to be running to represent the 51st District in Springfield.
Well, it's great that you bring that experience. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but do we have a lot of people with that kind of background in Springfield right now?
To
With
my
that,
understanding, as of right now, there are no nurses in the General Assembly. And I could reserve the right to be corrected on that, but I don't believe there are any currently licensed nurses working in the House, which that real
and
world experience brings a lot.
you think, because it's such an intensive role and it's affected you just the way you're described by so many different things. Even if there are maybe a handful, I'm sure it's not a lot of registered nurses, even if there were any. So it's great to have that representation in Springfield, or at least have you running for that to be that representative for those voices, as well as for the 51st district. Well, thank you so much for that. So let's get into this. Let's get into the interview. So one of the things that I really love talking about when I'm talking candidates is about the experience of running. I'm sure it's like, and you're a first time candidate, right?
Yes, I've never run for office before in this capacity. This is definitely a new experience.
So taking on a role, and I mean, state house is like, that's a pretty big thing to take on, especially for a first time candidate. So tell me a little bit about how that experience has been. What has that entailed, and what are the new things that you are discovering that maybe some of the audience may benefit from learning about?
When I was first approached about this opportunity, I had a lot of conversations with people in my life, my family, my friends, because I need the support system. I am not naive enough to think that this is something that I can do by myself without other people's help. And the support system was very important to me. So the first thing I did when making the decision to run was have very candid conversations and very frank conversations with the people in my life to say that if I make this decision, this is going to be my priority, this is what I'm going to focus on, and what is that going to look like moving forward. And I'm very blessed that I have a phenomenal support system that has backed me in so many different ways, not only making their schedules work so that I can prioritize campaign responsibilities and still have time to have breakfast on Sunday mornings with my family, but also have joined my campaign committee, which is literally made up with of my family and my friends that I've met through other volunteering opportunities. And they've jumped in and brought their experience and expertise to the table. And we've all come together to form this campaign. So I am very fortunate that I've had that resource, and I will never stop singing their praises for everything that they've done to help me out. Another thing that has been really important to me in putting this campaign together is to really, really focus on the fact that I want to be accessible to the district. I think there are a lot of parallels between what I did as a nurse and what I intend to do as a representative, in that not only am I listening to people and finding out exactly what their needs are, but I'm the one who can help connect them with the resources that they need and advocate for their needs to get the changes that they need to address their problems. We say in emergency medicine, we're a jack of all trades and a master of none. So we know a little bit about everything, but what we're really good at is making those connections to get people the help that they need. And I see that as this is pretty much what the job is. So that has been my focus, is to be able to make myself, easy to connect with and someone that you can talk to and really be able to listen to problems in order to figure out what's the best way to help them. And it's been a really great experience being able to do that. And I'm so grateful when people come up and talk to me about things that are going on in their community or concerns that they have about what's happening at the state and the federal level, because I really do value those interactions.
Well, I'm sure that's, yeah, I mean, it's a big undertaking like you've pointed out. And I think it's great to have that kind of support system in place, of course, for something like this. It's definitely never just a one-person job. Like, it is a team that goes into all of this. So as you've been going around the 51st district, and then of course I have also knocked thousands of doors in this area myself. So I have kind of a general sense of what voters might be saying are the top issues of mine. From what I can remember, it was things such as prescription drug affordability, affordability in general, property taxes. Is that generally what you're hearing right now? Is there anything else that you've been hearing at the doors from voters? What are the biggest issues on top of minds right now?
Affordability remains a very, very big concern among the district, and understandably so. And dovetailing into that is things that are happening at the federal level. We're all concerned about what's happening with the federal level, with the budgets that are being passed, and all of the drama going on this week with, the Epstein files and will that get released? The government shutdown has been affecting people in very personal ways. So it is all very interconnected. And I think it's important to remember a really good lesson we've all been able to see from these last couple months is, even though all of this craziness is kind of seems to be stemming from the federal level, there are really significant things happening at the local level. Whether it's coming out to join us on those protests, I hesitate to even call them protests. It's more of a celebration, a rally in support of immigrants. On Fridays, we meet at
Yeah.
Baldwin and Dundee at 4 o'clock. And that show of community makes a big difference. Showing up
Yep.
to the Barrington and the Palatine board meetings to support an ordinance to get ICE out of our communities has made a big difference. We saw last year the push to get the mental health board passed makes a huge difference. And those are what are going to carry us through with the craziness going on at the federal level. So getting involved at the local level really does make a difference with some of those issues.
Absolutely. And then so talking a little bit about the politics of this race. I mean, you were initially running in a competitive primary. You're now the presumptive nominee, which is, I'm sure, cool to say. We did interview one of your former opponents, Andrew Namowitz, back in September for his exit interview after he announced that he was leaving. He lent his full support to you in that interview. Tell us a little bit about how that Democratic primary was and what it's like, just dealing with your local party and with people like Andrew, as well as um, the team that you're trying to build now going into the general election?
I'm so sorry to disappoint you, but there's not a whole lot of juice or scandal with it, so it's probably not as exciting as you're hoping for. Andrew's a phenomenal person. I've known
Yeah.
Andrew for years. We both volunteer with the Palatine JCs. He was very supportive when I was president. I'm very happy to support him on his projects that he has done, and he's done some wonderful things in the community, both in the Palatine JCs and in other projects. I think Andrew's a phenomenal person, and having him run was honestly just a wonderful opportunity to say we've got two people who really care about this community, who both have different skills that they can bring to the table. Let's put our best foot forward and let the community decide which one of us they would like to have represent. There was no animosity. I think he's a great person. I'm honestly disappointed he had to suspend his campaign in the manner he did because I know that's not how he wanted. I genuinely feel I'm a good person and the right person to represent the community. So I'm very grateful to have his support. But I also genuinely cannot wait to see what he does next because he's not someone who is going to sit by and let things happen. So there's a lot of good ahead of him. I really can't wait to see what he does next.
I'm sure. But okay, let's twist it the other way. There are two declared Republicans
There are.
in the 51st. One of them, of course, ran in 2024 against Representative Syed, lost by a pretty embarrassing margin in a district that's usually pretty close. And we have a newcomer also challenging her. How are you reading into that? Or are you even paying attention to the Republican primary right now?
I'm noticing, first of all, with the losses going over, historically, this has been a relatively red district. Not only is it a testament to Representative Syed, but it's a testament to the community that we're living in, that our values are shifting, especially in response to what's happening to the federal level. People want more Democratic representation. We're seeing more from the Democratic Party that we think aligns with what our communities are hoping to see happen. I think that's very evident in the last few elections, especially with this blue wave nationally that just came through.
Yeah.
Democratic candidates are bringing to the table what the communities want to see. I have noticed the second candidate that came to the table. She did come in quite late in the process. It sounds like she was able to do a lot of her petition collecting, mostly on her own or on a smaller level. I haven't seen as much of a social media presence from her. Whether that was by choice or otherwise, I'm not sure what her decision or what her strategy was there. But I am noticing that things like her website are not it's not very evident that she's a Republican candidate. She's kind of seems like she's trying to keep her messaging, again, whether intentional or just, you're building a website from the ground up, it takes a little bit of time to get some of that work done.
Hmm.
Um, and again, I think that speaks to recognition that democratic values and democratic agendas are what people are trying to support. We're trying to do the work for affordability, but also trying to do the work to make sure people have access to the health care that they need. People have access to the human rights that they deserve. I
Right.
think that, well, again, whether or not it's intentional, I think that speaks to what the messaging that they're trying to cultivate. And I'm hoping that people know that they can still reach out and get those questions answers and get the representation they need from a Democratic candidate. And that's what I'm intending to do.
And I think, I mean, we call it a blue wave. I call it a blue tsunami that we had a couple of weeks ago. I mean, it was huge. And it's very indicative of exactly where it's going. And I guess as you point out, some more Democratic leaning values on that one of those Republicans' websites. I mean, clearly someone knows what sells in this district, and it is that people want common sense values, as has been proven over the last 4 years consistently with gains for Democrats and the 51st and Palatine and the area in general. What would you say, going into March and beyond March, what would you say is going to be the most exciting part, the most challenging part, however, you feel about the campaign, but what is the part of the campaign that you are thinking about the most between now and next November?
I have said this from the beginning, and this is more true than ever, seeing as I don't have a primary opponent. I don't view the campaign as a job interview. I view it more as, if anything, an internship. I'm not waiting until I get elected to do work in the community. That work is already starting. So, as a campaign, we've been doing things like monthly meals that we've gotten together, either that have been donated or that we've donated from our campaign funds to prepare a meal to donate to Journey's Road Home. We've been participating in community rallies and community initiatives, such as going to the town hall meeting that we just had, or information meeting that we just had at Barrington to learn about what resources are available when ICE is spotted in the community. Promoting those types of situations or those types of events, those types of organizations, that is 100% my focus for the next few months. We're campaigning, we're getting word out, we're trying to get some name recognition and let people know that my website is available, my email is available. I really do want to hear from voters and I really want to connect with them about what's important to them. But I also see the campaign as a platform. And to me, that means we have a responsibility to use that platform to help the community. Because that's 100% why I am doing this, is I want to be a positive for the community. I want to do good in the community. I want to use the campaign and my candidacy and my role as an elected official to make my community a better place and a stronger place. So I'm already starting to invest in the work to do that between now and then. So not having a primary opponent just means that I get to dedicate more time already giving back and using the campaign as that platform.
I kind of like that, though, not a job interview, but an internship, because really, I mean, the way I see a lot of you candidates running is it is honestly kind of like a version of the job that you're trying to run for. You are very involved in I mean, and you specifically are very involved in the community. I see you at literally all sorts of events all the time. So I do believe you on that for sure. It's great. So you mentioned a little bit about, figuring out ways to combat ICE. Of course, Palatine has been hit by the federal government's overreach. When you call it whatever you want, that's what I've been calling it. The federal government's overreach by deploying those ICE agents, masked agents, onto our streets. I know you've been keeping track of the incidents going on in the community. I mean, how have you been reacting to those incidents? What have people been telling you? What's the response been like? I want to get a little bit more on what's going on with all that ICE stuff that's been going on in Palatine.
I don't think it's surprising to say that it's viscerally sickening. It's physically upsetting on so many
Yeah.
levels and
Yeah.
across the entire spectrum. People, I refuse to even call them agents. Agents of the law, peacekeepers, police officers, those who have sworn an oath to protect people, show their faces and identify themselves, and stand proud saying due process is a right for every single person who sets foot on US soil. And
Yeah.
those who are kidnapping people off of the streets are not respecting that. I refuse to acknowledge them with any sort of respect that I give to a police officer who spends their career trying to protect the community. I don't hold them in the same regard. And I don't think it's a stretch to say when you see something like that happening and when you see the violence that is being utilized to take people off of the streets, it is not only a violation on the person being arrested, it's a violation on the entire community because now we don't feel safe in our own homes. We worry for our neighbors, our friends, our loved ones, ourselves, whomever who feel like they can't send their kids to school, they can't go to work. That's not the community that you and I were raised in, and that is not the community that we want to pass on to others. So it's a violation on so many fronts. And to be quite frank, I also get very frustrated on behalf of first responders. I've been an EMT and a first responder for most of my career. I've worked very closely with law enforcement. And when you create a situation where there is this just visceral distrust of law enforcement from the situation that they're being put in, where they're not allowed to interfere at the federal level, but at the same time, there are people on the streets. Anyone can buy a mask or a border patrol or whatever you want to put on your chest and on the internet. That
Yeah.
understandable distrust of law enforcement that creates, that puts our actual law enforcement at danger. So this is an absolute no-win situation for anybody.
It's very true. The Palatine Police Department was dragged into some hot water recently over an officer's conduct during an ICE detainment. And I believe there was a pretty quick protest that was set up in response to how that was handled. I know that stuff is still being obviously looked at, and people in all sorts of roles are evaluating exactly how that officer acted in that situation, and the relationship between local police departments and ICE in general in Illinois. But you were just talking about this, that relationship with law enforcement. If you could just expand a little bit more on how these types of incidents and those lapses in judgment just damage what communities have built. Because now what we're hearing is that ICE is leaving the Chicagoland. They're going to North Carolina for their reign of terror, I guess. They come to Chicago, they screw up relationships between law enforcement and the communities, they leave, but they leave people divided. So how do you think our community is supposed to reconcile with this damage that they have done?
I think the best path forward is transparency. I don't want to, I've seen the video after it happened. I actually was pretty much involved with that protest that happened in front of the police station immediately in the aftermath. I shared it on my social medias. We got a wonderful response of people wanting to come out and support their neighbors. A few bad actors, but I think it's a testament to why we're doing this in the way that those bad actors were addressed and handled. It was nonviolent. There was no down with the police or, none of that stuff. It was just, we want our communities protected is the message that got out there.
Yeah.
Between that event and that protest actually taking place, I actually did have a very long phone call with Palatine Police Department talking about, here's what we saw, this is what's being done in the investigation. And as an individual, I appreciated that. But I think the best way forward is transparency so that the entire community can feel like they had that same conversation. What happened? Is there an investigation being done? What does the process of that look like? And again, I've seen the video. I have my own opinions. I think the biggest weapon that's being utilized against our communities right now is the chaos and confusion that's being thrust upon us, because it's very easy to react emotionally, and it's very easy to react, with understandable fear and have a very quick reaction to it. I, having been a first responder in situations where there's chaos and you're not sure what the rule is, am I supposed to be, focused on one thing? Is the law saying the other? Obviously, the law says that local police cannot help with getting a person under arrest or getting them in handcuffs. Was that officer's intention? Was he trying to de-escalate in a way that he shouldn't have been? I don't know. I have not seen any thorough, results of those investigations. But I think if we can have transparency between our community law enforcement and our community, I think that will kind of just help to calm some of that frustration and help people to see this is what's being done. I do believe more can be being done. I think there's a lot more we can do so that people know when they call 911, the police are going to show up and be on their side. When we see someone being taken off the streets by someone who refuses to identify themselves, who is assaulting the person that they are quote unquote arresting by pushing their face into the pavement or dragging them out of their car, that's not conduct we would ever accept from a law enforcement officer. Why are we saying it's okay for someone to use it just because they say they're a federal agent? I think there's definitely opportunities where we could be seeing more from our local law enforcement. Transparency is a big part of that, but honestly, it's just going to take that kind of focus on just understanding the goal was to confuse and to instigate that chaos. And that's a powerful weapon. So we can't let that be what takes, the victory away from us.
Well, thank you so much for that. I've been keeping track of this situation pretty closely. Obviously, I'm not on the ground in Palatine as frequently as I'd like, but it's good to hear that perspective and to hear exactly what's going on. And I'm glad to see that, the work is being done to restore some of that. I mean, in interviews I've had with other candidates, it's the same thing. These federal agents, or whatever you want to call them, they come into our communities, they cause this chaos, they cause division, and then they just leave. And There's talks that they'll come back again in March. We'll see
And
if
that
they
in
want to come back.
itself, that comment in itself of, oh, we could come back, that
Is
fear is a weapon.
It's
Fear
a
is a
weapon,
weapon. It's keeping people from going to their jobs. It's keeping people from
right?
going to local businesses. We've had businesses close because of the threat of
Yes.
ICE. They couldn't get the customer
One,
base in that they want. And to be completely clear, like I said, I understand a frustrating position for our local law enforcement to be put
mhm.
into. It's a very frustrating position for them to be put into. They're victims of this chaos as well. That does not hold a candle to what our immigrant neighbors and those who are being targeted and those who are being kidnapped and losing their family members does not hold a candle to what they are going through. And that should be at the forefront of everyone's mind. I can't personally imagine. I have the privilege of my skin color that doesn't make me a victim of those situations. That doesn't mean I can't empathize and be upset and frustrated for my neighbors who are going through this as well. And that's what being a community is. It doesn't matter that this isn't my experience. I am standing right next to you, angry and wanting to fight to keep this from ever happening again.
It's absolutely tragic. I mean, I know there's a cafe that I've been going to since I was very young that I heard is closing because it's like right next to where I live. And it's sad to hear that they're closing because of these raids. But at the same time, like, yes, you're right. The community that comes together, and that's kind of what the conversation has been about with candidates from across the Chicagoland that I've been having. It's that how communities are coming together to stand up for each other. I think that's so special, and that's the thing that they won't be able to take away from us is our resolve. And I think we just got to keep building on that,
And
and
it's
we just got to,
working.
and it's working.
It's
And
working. How
yeah, I
many
mean,
times in those videos do you see someone standing with a whistle, or
yeah.
you hear that all these people were calling 911, or all these people were calling the response number? Everyone's standing around videotaping. People are asking, what's your name? Where are your kids? Can we help? The donations to food banks, offering to go to food banks for families that are afraid to leave. All of these things that are coming out and coming into play, they make such a difference. And as horrible as everything has been, it has been amazing to see people rise to the challenge to defend their neighbors. And I will never stop saying thank you to every single person who does it because this is the community I'm proud to be from. And this is the community I want to advocate for and represent.
Incredibly inspiring. Well, I want to switch gears just a little bit. This is a question I've been asking guests on the show since like July now. I don't even know how many months that is at this point, but it's
Time has
been
no meaning anymore. It's all just running together.
time is a subjective concept now.
It's all just running together.
But it's a thing that I've been asking because it still stays on the top of mind no matter how many months it's been, which is and it's a great example of the federal overreach and the federal government under this administration that has just sat in our minds. And it's the big, ugly bill, which, reminder, takes 17 million Americans off of their health care, millions of children off of free school lunches, takes nutrition assistance away from veterans and seniors. It's a disastrous piece of legislation that's going to just hurt so many people. And I
Hmm.
mean, I've sat in the briefings and I've seen how it's going to affect Illinois families specifically. I was sitting in a briefing a few months ago and it said roughly 500,000 Illinoisans are expected to lose their health care.
Hmm.
It's tragic. I mean, given your background in healthcare, I'm sure you're paying attention to that. But is there anything specifically in the big ugly bill that you have been thinking about or that's concerned you that maybe we're not talking about enough in the media?
I think the biggest thing people don't realize is we hear lots of, Medicaid is going to get cut. And the response that I sometimes see people is like, well, I have insurance, so they shouldn't be mooching off of Medicaid. And I think what people are not being told and what they're not understanding is just how interconnected everything in the healthcare system is. First of all, our healthcare system is broken, and it was broken long before this horrible bill was passed.
Hmm.
And I don't know if you can fully comprehend it until you've been faced. Most of us in this world are one medical emergency away from being at risk of losing our home. A true medical emergency, losing your home, losing your car, losing your job, that should not be the way that things are. So if you're lucky enough to have insurance and not be on Medicaid, that's fantastic. The way that the things are, that's not a guarantee for life. The other thing is, even if you are able to have your insurance, Medicaid affects you significantly. Because if we take away Medicaid and hospitals' ability to be compensated for services that are provided under Medicaid, insurance premiums are going to skyrocket. And what you pay into insurance, the money has to come from somewhere. And so they're going to try to recoup those losses through other means. We're already seeing it. We just passed our the deadline for insurance for the coming year, and people's insurance premiums are jumping way up. They tried very hard to make it look like all these cuts weren't going to be coming until after the midterm so that the bill wasn't blamed for these coming financial hardships. They successfully did this with the last big federal bill that they passed with all of the tax cuts that were passed in 2017, knowing those tax repercussions were not going to come into effect until the following presidential year term, which is
Right.
why Joe Biden gets blamed for a lot of the tax situation that was caused by Trump's tax plan. That was done intentionally. But they didn't calculate very well on this one because we're already seeing insurance premiums go up.
Yes.
Hospitals are already boarding up the windows, knowing that with cuts to Medicaid, they're going to be financially hurt. I've heard of hospitals in the area that are under hiring freezes for non-clinical staff. Raises, cost of living raises are getting cut. Hourly bonuses and stipends for working nights and weekends are under threat with trying to balance out how they're going to be able to afford these types of situations. It's already happening now, and these cuts are projected to not start for another year or so. So even if you have insurance, it is going to affect you. It's going to affect your cost. It's going to affect the quality of care that you receive in the hospital. It's going to affect the staff that is working to take care of you in the hospital. We are all under threat with healthcare into this situation.
And I guess with your background working as an emergency, as an EMT nurse,
Mhm.
I'm sure you know people who still work in that field. I mean, how are just with that hat on, how do you see these cuts affecting people who work within healthcare? And how is this likely to hurt so many people who literally never asked for something as terrible as this?
It's hard to put into words and it's hard to fully understand what the effects of this are going to. Honestly, this will be studied for years, the effect that this is going to have on people, which is why it's so important to do what we can to try to mitigate these issues already. Um, on one thing that I think people don't realize, specifically for emergency medicine, I don't know anything about your insurance status when you come to the hospital. There is a federal law that requires if you
Yes.
come to a hospital, you will get the care you need to get stabilized no matter what. If I ask you what your insurance is before I start to care for you, it could be seen as a violation of that law. So there is a common misconception that you're not going to get the treatment you need. That's not the case. Emergency specifically, we are going to take care of you to the best of our ability, regardless of your insurance status. That being said, the care does have to get paid for, and we all know it. So, again, somewhere down the line, someone is going to have to front that bill, whether it's insurance holders who are covering for everyone else, Medicaid, whatever. The system just is set up that way. That being said, as an emergency nurse who has had to deliver some of the worst news a person can get, or to let somebody know that they are faced with a decision, it is it will forever haunt me how many times I've had a conversation with a patient or a patient's family member about an impending medical decision, and the first question they ask is, how are we going to pay for this? And how do we live in a system in one of the best medical, we have some of the best medical operations, equipment, research available to us, and yet every single day people say, I don't know if I can do that because I can't afford it. How is this the situation that we're in? The bill is going to exacerbate this. It's going to cause more problems. But even before this bill was passed, we had a failing healthcare system that needed a lot of attention and a lot of fixes. So it's going to be a long path forward. And nobody wants to hear that. Everyone wants to think that there's going to be a very easy way to fix this. Unfortunately, it was a damaged system that just took an even bigger hit. So, one of the things that we can do is focus on, much like we're doing with the immigration situation right now, focusing on what we can do at a community level, at a state level, to try to help in ways that we can to minimize the damage that's being done to help people through this difficult time while we work on fixing the system and getting it to the status that we need it to be at. It's going to be long and frustrating, but it is worth investing in.
And it is going to take some time, of course, to fix it, but I think it's just so important that we raise awareness to the issue. And I think we rightfully call out the people that have caused this, which is, of course, those Republicans in Washington and Republican officials across the country who are enabling it. I mean, just so people know exactly at the ballot box, who's put their
Yes.
life in
Don't
this affordability crisis the way they have been. It's so true. And we just, right now, the most we can do is raise awareness, but it is powerful in itself to keep doing that. I want to switch gears again, and I want to talk a little bit about your goals if you are elected. I'm sure there are a billion goals that you might have, but what would you say if you are elected in 2026 and you're sitting in the State House on 2027 January? What would you say is your day one priority? Top of mind that you want to get solving right quick as soon as you can. And what would you say is your 100-day agenda? Everything that comes after that. And why would you say those are your priorities?
I think they're very much the same. And again, this
Okay.
boils down to there is no quick fix. My day one is going to be to start doing the work, doing the research. Well, not the research, making the networking connections, start working within the House and with the other Democrats. And we're already starting to have these conversations.
Okay.
How do we move forward with healthcare? With my background, with my experience, it's natural that that's going to be what I focus on the most. So that work, 100 however many days it's going to take to get some very significant changes done with that work starts immediately. So day
Hmm.
one, even before day one, the work starts to get that done. I think along those same lines, day one, what I want to make sure is established and what I really hope that people are already starting to see from me. And if you're not, my email's on my website, please reach out. I want people to know that they have access to me as a representative because I don't think there is any part of this job that is more important than people knowing they can talk to me about their problems and find out what is being done to help them and what resources I can connect them with. I mean, we can go into specific, areas that I really believe in. I can't fix grocery prices, but one thing we can do is we can focus on, making resources more available for our senior citizen population. There's no reason that, the baby boomers are retiring and are starting to enjoy their golden years. There's no reason that we can't invest in resources and accessibility to resources so that they can live independently in their own homes for as long as possible rather than having to rely on adult children to care for them or nursing homes. There's lots of opportunities there that we can invest in to improve, accessibility to resources, quality of life, to encourage that independence. That's something I would really like to focus on. Trade schools, community colleges, 4-year degrees at universities are ridiculously expensive right now. I don't know that I can, single-handedly take on the 4-year universities to lower those costs, but what we can do is find ways to help people get that door opened into the workforce through more affordable means. Harper College is right in our back door. I got 2
Yeah.
licenses for classes at Harper College. What a fantastic investment. Elevating those colleges, helping get a program through Harper, opening up new avenues like that to make education more accessible and more affordable. Specifics like that, I think, are things I would really like to help focus on to help pretty early on in the process. But again, overall, healthcare is very near and dear to my heart. And it's also very important to me that people know that I am here, I am listening. This is my community. My community is why I'm doing this. So I want people to reach out and feel like they know I'm listening and I'm working for them.
This is the constant dedication that I just find so inspiring and really what we need in this moment. I'm not even joking. Like I talk to candidates from all over and all levels, and the biggest problem that I have, and it doesn't have to be on the show, sometimes they're off the record chats too, is that people don't care or that they're just doing it for whatever sake, for fun's sake. But when I see you doing the work, Jenny, I mean, I'm not even lying. I am very impressed and very inspired by that work. And that is exactly what we need, a fighter who is ready to take on these challenges, head on. So good for you, and thank you for being that voice and for offering yourself with your background and your expertise in this very crucial moment. But we are running out of time today for our interview. But before we do go, are there any parting thoughts that you would like to share with my audience? Perhaps more ways to learn about how they can get in touch with you, how to follow you on social media, and that sort of thing, as well as any other parting messages.
Number one, thank you for saying that. I really cannot tell you how much I appreciate it and how important that is to me. What you see is what you get with me. So if you have questions at any point, you and I have had a few candid conversations about things that are going on, and I'm hoping and I'm sure that you see at this point, I have no poker face. What you see is what you get. I'm in this because I want to do good for my community, and that is the ultimate goal. That being said, if you do want to connect with me, my website is very easy. It's just jennylevan.com. I could not believe that domain was open when I decided to run for office, so I was very excited about that. JennyLevan.com. There's an email on my website. It's connect@jennylevan.com, and I check that personally. I have a wonderful team that helps me out with so many things in this campaign, but I do check that personally because it is really important to me that people know that they have access to me and they can reach out if there's something I can help them with. I also just in general, the candidates that I have been speaking with, the elected officials I've been speaking with across the district in Barrington, Ela Township Dems, Lake County Dems, people like you who are very invested and volunteer their time, people who come to the rallies and come to the meetings and show up at, village and town hall board meetings. I cannot tell you how inspired I am and how grateful I am by everyone who shows up. And the more I can do to just continue to elevate that, to me, that's a job well done. And that's something I'm going to strive to do. So thank you for what you do. Thank you everyone watching, because somebody who's watched this long, you're obviously very invested in the community and listened to me ramble for the last hour or so. So thank you for doing that. And if you want to volunteer and help out with our campaign, reach out on the website. We've got a few events coming up, a few door knocking events, other volunteer opportunities, and we would love to have you come join us.
Perfect. Jenny Levin, candidate for House District 51. Thank you so much for answering the good questions today, and thank you so much for your time. We hope to have you back on very soon for a campaign update. How does that sound?
That sounds great. Anytime you want to chat, let's schedule it.
Sounds great. Thank you so much, Jenny.
Thanks, Ishaan.